Hello, Facebook world. Look, this is just a very, 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 very quick check-in on Facebook Live on Saturday the 10th of July 2021 at 7:55 p.m. United Kingdom time, which means in 5 minutes from now, I'm going to be live for the first time ever on Clubhouse, the social media listening and sometimes joining in app. I'm going to be live for approximately an hour and a half to 2 hours on Clubhouse. And what I'm going to do during that time, I'm going to explain the real truth of how hypnotherapy works, how stage hypnosis works, how hypnosis is used in all areas of our life from cradle to grave, and a lot of other things that you either didn't know, that you needed to know, or you thought you knew, but you've probably been lied to about. So we'll be going live on there. This is just to let you know, because on there later on I'll be able to then involve people apparently, and it's just giving me a documentary version. So I literally have to find the app. Clubhouse is that weird looking, I'm trying to, there we go, Clubhouse app. If you're not yet on Clubhouse, ask somebody you know, but think on your Facebook, ask somebody to send you an invite who knows your mobile number. I can't do it at the minute because I don't have any invites. Okay, so I will just log in. If you're easily offended, do not go on Clubhouse. Seriously. Not for my event, because I am going to literally be telling stuff. 742. Won't say the rest, in case it's security wise. There we go. So yeah, I'll be over on Clubhouse in about 3 minutes time. We're going live at 8 o'clock. 8 o'clock live on Clubhouse with Hypnotism Exposed. The truth, the shocking truth about stage hypnosis, hypnotherapy, complementary alternative medicine, the sales industry, you name it, we're covering all manner of subjects. Let me now work this out. It says here, Hypnotism Exposed, 8 o'clock. Well, if I click on that, share, tweet, copy link, no, none of them. This is literally the first time I've ever done this. The link is above or below the video to join me on... Now I click here and it says today, 8 o'clock, Hypnotism Exposed. So I'll click on that. No. Copy link. Had to the thing is, what do I do now? Do I click start a room? Do I just literally do that? I had an event advertised. The event is there. The event is there. It says the event. It says today at 8. It's 2 minutes away. Not due for 2 minutes, but I'm just wondering if there's... We are going to start in 2 minutes time, apparently. That is, we're going to start assuming that I can work out how to do this. Those of you who've seen me on webinars before know that I'm not particularly technology minded. Got the hang of Facebook Live, YouTube, a few other things, but it's got a starting time advertised, but I assume I've got to start a room. Oh, 8 o'clock, start your scheduled event is giving me the option now. Yes, first time ever. We're going live in 1 minute, 60 seconds and counting. So I'm going to click this where it says start your scheduled event. Well, bugger me senseless. Apparently I now have a hallway, whatever the heck that is. No, the hallway is other events. I'm in my event. And I would hope that it's making a little symbol like that. That would mean that it is actually broadcasting audio to Hypnotism Exposed, the shocking real truth about hypnosis, at the link that is above or below, assuming that you're logged into what do you calls it? I'm having a mental block. Clubhouse, yes. Oh, my clock has turned 8 o'clock. 2000 hours. 8 o'clock PM United Kingdom time. So, I'm just going to give it a minute or two more, and then I am going to begin. And, well, as I say, we'll just give people a minute or two more. I am recording this audio as well. I will let you know. So should I ask people to take part later, it is being recorded, so that then people who are on my Facebook or go to my website, magicalguru.com, which is magicalguru.com, will be able to end up going to my other social media platforms and finding the recording in case people join us late, because I'm sure that also people who are on it from the beginning are going to want to clarify things. So if you're seeing this video on Facebook, this is not a visual thing, so please, if you can, possibly if you're on Clubhouse, hop over to Clubhouse at the details above or below this video and join us there, okay, on at Royal Hypnotist, which is at ROYLE HYPNOTIST at Royal Hypnotist. Jump over to Clubhouse, join us there, and we are going to begin in the next couple of minutes. I'm just letting a couple of people who text message me and stuff join the room, and then we're going to get started in the next couple of minutes. As I say, if you are currently on Facebook at the minute, then get over to Clubhouse, because I'm only doing this Facebook Live as I speak now, just to let people know last minute that I will in a moment be beginning. But before I do, I'm now working out here. I'm going to, before I actually officially begin, click on this, invite to speak, to let my friend Anne say something. So I've clicked that, so I assume I put invite to speak. Hiya. How are you?
I'm very well, thank you. How are you?
Yeah, good. I'm just giving it a minute or two, then I shall be beginning, as it were.
Oh, well, well, from experience, it usually takes a few minutes for people to join the room. Would you like me to invite some of my friends into the room?
You can, by all means, yeah.
Yeah, right, okay, I'll do that. And Phil's joining in now, I think, as well.
Now that'll be interesting, because I'm not sure how you do that. That means that I can invite people, but I don't know how.
Yeah, well, once you've got people that you follow,
which I've got, yeah.
They can see when you're opening your room, because it'll come up on their phone, but that's only if they're looking at the phone or if they've got notifications switched on.
Right.
So what I tend to do is find out who the people are that follow our room, and then email them sort of like a few days before to remind them, or contact them on a text message or something like that, just so that they get used to you're going to run your room. If it's going to be on a regular basis, say if it's going to be 8 o'clock every Saturday night, or if it's a Monday at 7 o'clock at night, whatever, then they get used to when you're going to be running your room. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to just mute myself, and then I'm going to invite some of my the people I know up, just to see if they would like to join in as well.
Okay, thank you. Well, I should just waffle some nonsense before I get into the meat, as it were, then.
Okay, yeah.
But I shall segue into that in a few moments. So thank you for that. That's a friend of mine, for those that don't know, Anne Barrett, whose husband Phil Barrett is also on Club. You'll see his face when you hop over from Facebook. I'm going to turn this Facebook Live video off in a minute. It's just to basically notify you and get an audio. So I'm going to waffle some nonsense for 2 or 3 minutes, but it isn't actually nonsense. It's just it isn't the shocking truth stuff that's been promised. I am recording the audio of this. I warn people that in advance. The reason being that some of this is very deep once we get into it, and some of it, when we're finished in about an hour and a half roughly's time, you're going to end up, there will be opportunity to ask questions or make comments, but some of you are going to end up after the event thinking things over, mulling them over, waking up in the morning and thinking, oh yeah, I've just thought of an example in my life where that was completely relevant, or I've just thought of an experience in my life where that actually happened to me, meaning you. And the moment that happens and it personally resonates with you, where you can remember and bring back memories that you can almost re-experience and feel, that is when you will know that what I'm telling you is reality. In other words, when I begin in a minute or two's time, do not believe a single word I say if it does not resonate with you. I'm not here to tell you that this is gospel, that this is the way it most definitely is. Now, the truth is, between you and me, after being alive nearly 46 years and 30 of them just over being involved in some way or another with hypnosis, and of those 46 years, pretty much 43 years of them somehow having been involved in show business, my conclusions from my personal experiences, but the key word there, I guess I have to acknowledge, is the word personal, meaning it's what happened to me, is that what I'm about to share with you is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, as it worked in my reality, in my world, and works in my world. But the thing is, you see, what I'm going to share with you isn't just what's worked in my world. The conclusions I came to, I have shared now with literally hundreds and hundreds of, well, actually millions of people in terms of around the world, in terms of people who acquired copies of my first ever book, Confessions of a Hypnotist, everything you ever wanted to know about hypnosis but were afraid to ask. That has both been on sale but also given away free and downloaded well over 10 million times over the past sort of 10 years. Which in internet marketing terms actually isn't as impressive as it may first sound to somebody. So I'm not bragging by saying over 10 million people have downloaded it. I just want you to know before I get into the shocking stuff, because I'm going to share some stuff with you that I guarantee experienced stage hypnotists are going to go, ah! Experienced hypnotherapists are going to go, you bastard. Or, and if you're offended by language or things like that, now's the time to fuck off, because we haven't even started. This will be a roller coaster ride of 60 minutes when I say go. And then at the end of that roughly 60 minutes, then I will invite people to ask me questions and put me on the spot and to try and trip me up and point out why what I've said is, if they think it is, why what I've said is, if they think it is, bullshit. And then I will, but be warned, I'm brutal, I will point out exactly why I'm right and you're wrong. And that does sound slightly defensive and offish at the beginning, but I'm just kind of laying out the ground rules and also pointing out to you that before I will go on the count of one, we're beginning, 3, 2, 1, and then click my fingers. Before we do, one more thing you kind of need to know, and also for the recording, for when people listen to this back in the future, is a little bit about me for those that don't know, so that you understand why, whether you agree with the conclusions I'm going to share with you later or not, it's kind of immaterial, although we can discuss that Q&A later, but why and how I came to these decisions. So for that, we have to kind of start on the 13th of August 1975. That's the day I was born. And I was born whilst my parents were travelling with Gandhi's Circus here in England. And fast forwarding a bit, because the moment I was born, RAF Cosford, because that's the nearest hospital base to where the circus was at the time, I was taken back to the circus and I was travelling. I am born circus, basically. By birth, I was born into a circus family. The relevance of that to hypnosis will become clear in a minute. At the age of 3 and just over 3.5, I started performing with my dad on Gandhi's Circus as Britain's youngest paid professional circus clown. and we'd be doing shows every day, sometimes twice a day. So in the world of show business, some people, certainly more so in modern times, in the past we used to talk about stage time or treading the boards. These days you'll hear the young uns talking more about flight time. They refer to it too. That's not a long-term show business phrase, by the way. That's what people who think they know about show business have started referring to it as flight time. No, it's wearing those boards down, treading the boards. But anyway, I digress. So I was at the age of 3.5 until shortly before I was about 7, doing at least a show a day, sometimes 2 a day, and sometimes if it was at things like the Royal Lancashire Show, where Gandhi's had their circus a number of years, along with all the other events that were going on at this very prestigious event, we would sometimes be doing parading shows, as they called them. So it wouldn't be the full 60 minutes each half with an interval circus show as it was normally. It'd be just like a condensed 60-minute version, but we'd perform that maybe 4 or 5 times during the course of the day, during the course of the particular gala or outdoor event, as it were. So a lot of this I'm going to tell you in the next 5 minutes before we start properly and talk hypnosis sounds as though I'm bragging, and I make no apologies for that. It's not that I'm bragging. In fact, some of what I'm going to mention I'm quite ashamed of. It is the truth, and do regret in certain ways that I didn't handle differently. But what all of it did was give me a unique set of experiences and filters for life, you may say, which becomes very relevant when we talk about hypnosis and the way the mind works and the way we perceive things and such like. So yeah, 3.5 to about the age of 6, I was regularly doing shows, and to be honest, during that time, 2.5, just short of 3 years, I probably did more live performances than the vast majority of so-called professional stage hypnotists in England have ever done in their career, with the exception of a few, mainly who are friends of mine, such as Grant, who's on Clubhouse with us. Hi, Grant. Chris Lee. What the people who have actually done more in their career than I did in those 3 and a bit years fall into 2 categories. They're either people who've been at it since before I ever got involved in hypnosis. So your Andrew Newtons, your Paul McKennas, your Ken Websters, your Peter Powers, or they're people that I've taught. Or they're people who were not actually successful until they came and had mentoring and coaching from me. Again, it sounds like I'm bragging, and to some degree I am, but I defy anyone who's alive on Clubhouse or listens to the recording of this that I will release on the internet. Please try to prove anything I say is untrue. It's a challenge. I throw it down. Any hypnotist, any stage hypnotist, any hypnotherapist, any jealous magician, anyone who's over the years tried to fuck my career up, feel free to try and find proof that anything I say is untrue, fraudulent, factually incorrect, or misleading in any manner. And you know what? If you find any evidence which you won't, then report me to the trading standards and to the police, because in the context of this and what I do and what I'm talking about, at the end I'll be telling you to go and visit my website, magicalguru.com, and potentially end up buying yourself self-help products or stage hypnosis hypnotherapy training courses, or how to use hypnotic language in your business stuff. I'm not going to be pitching that all the way through, but at the end I'm going to say, go and have a look at my website, and some of you might. So technically speaking, if I say anything during the hour when I get started and say that the clock starts now, that is untrue and provable as such, that would be the criminal act of fraud, and it would potentially be deemed as an imprisonable offence by attempting to obtain money by deception. So please, I challenge you to prove me wrong. And the reason I say that is not to sound like a complete twat, which I probably do, but I don't care, frankly. It's because some of what I'm going to share in that 60 minutes when I go, the clock starts now, will sound so outrageously untrue that I need you to know that it actually is true. And if you have any doubt that it isn't true, please go away afterwards. Make notes during that 60-minute segment. Make notes of what you think's not true. And then go away, Google's your friend, and find out whether it's true or not. And if you can prove it to be bollocks, to be lies, to be fraud, please report me to the relevant authorities. If, however, as I know you will, because I'm not that daft, you discover that everything I've said to you during that 60 minutes is completely true and very easily verified as completely factually correct, then please encourage people to join me on Clubhouse, my other social media platforms and whatnot. So we're getting very close to the starting time. So I'm at 6 at this point, 6 and a bit. And my mum decided, because my mum didn't come from a show business background. She literally got married to my dad at a time when he was having a break from travelling with the circus, actually, and he was entertainments manager at a holiday camp in Newquay. And that's where they met, and they ended up getting married. But then he went back touring with the circus again because the holiday camp got sold to a big chain and knocked down and turned into something else. So my life was brought up in what to me was normal, but to most people made me the odd one out, which is where the conflict started at the age of 6 and a bit. That's when my mum, who came from a more normal background, wanted me to go to school in a normal fashion rather than travelling around with the circuit and going to a different school in each town each week. And the agreement was my dad would carry on travelling with the circus, and then I'd go school holidays, and if it was close enough, at weekends, and go and perform with him during those times. And that's exactly what happened. And at the first school in Ainsworth, to be honest, it was okay, actually. It was okay until the Daily Mirror came and did an article with the heading, Alex the Circus Six It. It was just before my 7th birthday, so it still said I was 6, because I was. And when that went in the Daily Mirror, it got subsequent radio and TV coverage and stuff. And for those that don't know, a Daily Mirror is a big British national newspaper, if you listen to the replay. Or if people do want to watch my body language as well, I've just left it running on Facebook as well as a Facebook Live for interest, because then we get the audio recording of that. It's just that here on Clubhouse, after that 60-minute segment, I can actually open it up to be put on the spot, ask questions and interact and stuff. So let's get closer to that, which is that at Ainsworth, the Daily Mirror article went in, and suddenly everyone at the school knew who I was. There was an error. Please try again. An error in what? I don't know. That's Hob. So yeah, at the age of 6, that article went in. The kids at school loved it. It was like, oh, the Daily Mirror had been taking pictures of me at school and all this, that, the other. Unfortunately, the teachers were jealous because they became aware that I was arguably earning, on a pro rata basis for the amount of work I did for the money I got, more money than them. And a number of them were complete bastards and bitches. And if they ever hear this, if they worked at Ainsworth C of E School in Ainsworth near Bolton, where I believe Peter Kay currently lives, if any of them ever hear this, if you were working there in 1981 as a teacher and you ever had a short ginger-haired kid who you effectively bullied and discriminated against, fuck you. Because that did happen. I got bullied by the teachers to the point where I became very depressed, as I now know it to be, and really my self-esteem, self-respect, self-confidence, self-everything took a massive bashing on a daily basis. And I begged for us to move, and before I was 8, thank God, before the time I'd reached the age of 8, my mum did find a house and bought it in Haywood, Lancashire, and we moved, and that meant that I escaped the howl of that school and those teachers, and I started going to St Luke's C of E school on Queen's Park Road in Haywood, but still performing in the holidays and weekends and occasionally time off if it was a really big massive show or a really good venue or such thing. And then I started getting publicity again, and I was on Granada Reports at the age of 8 to promote a show that we were doing at Haywood Civic Hall and some other Northwest Civic Hall and little theatre venues with the Family Circus Showtime show that I was clowning in, and by then starting to do a bit of magic and juggling in. And I feared that the teachers were going to do the same as they did at Ainsworth. But the good news was, no, they were brilliant. They were dead enthusiastic about it and dead supportive and wonderful. And I thought, oh, life's changed so positively for the better. Excellent. Until I started getting both emotionally, verbally and physically, although to be honest, the physical part wasn't what really caused the issue. It was the daily name calling and stuff. They say sticks and stones will break my bones, but names will never hurt me. That's the biggest pack of bullshit ever. And anyone who actually says that to their child is blatantly lying to them. And when they say it, deep down they know they're fucking lying. And that it's supposed to, it's not even a second-rate sticking plaster. It's bullshit. Constant berration, negativity, and name calling has far deeper, cutting, and long-term consequences than shooting somebody, stabbing them, or fucking punching them on a daily basis, like kids at school were doing to me. Just to clarify, I mean the punching. They didn't have guns and knives. Okay. I just realised how that could have sounded then. And it got to the point that before I moved to Sillermore High School, which is now Sillermore Sports College in Haywood, where I took increasingly more time off school of my own accord, bunked off school and went and did psychic fairs, doing tarot reading. It was a no-brainer, really. Go to school and learn things that are going to be of zero real use to me in the real world when I become a performer, was my mentality. Or go and earn a few £100 reading tarot cards at a psychic fair. Yep, I know which one I'm doing. Because that will give me more money than to buy magic props and illusions to cut people in half on stage, which is what I really wanted to do when I left school. But it didn't quite go to plan, as I'll explain in a minute. So before I moved up to high school, and I mean literally just before I moved up to high school, I won't dwell on this too much, because you can always go on magicalguru.com, click on my resume page, and at the bottom of that is an audio podcast I did for Men's Suicide Prevention Day. And you can listen to that where I go into more depth. But in a nutshell, I got to a point where I didn't want the pain to continue anymore. So I went one evening after school, when I'd apparently gone to the corner shop to buy something. That was my excuse for leaving the house. I went and it was a winter evening, it was dark. I went and I lay down in the middle of Queen's Park Road in Haywood, which is a notoriously busy road, knowing that by lying there it'd be too late by the time a vehicle saw me, and well, that'd be the end of it. And I lay there, and it seemed like forever. And in the end, it sounds fucking ridiculous, I got fed up. So I gave up. I stood up. I started walking back towards the pavement. And just as I put my first foot on the pavement, a big articulated lorry whirled past at like the most ridiculously high speed that it nearly blew me onto the pavement with the wind draft it created. And in that moment I thought, what the fuck? A matter of a couple of seconds different and I would have been, there's no doubt about it, I'd have been, well, I won't be here. Now, in later years, I didn't think this at the time, but in later years, it made me reflect back when I heard her saying it. To that moment, it made me reflect back. And the saying I learned in later years was from someone who actually survived out of jumping out of something ridiculous like a 20-story building. If you just type into Google, man survives attempted suicide from 20-story building, it was somewhere in America. It is real. The guy's been on TV. You can go and check that. The point is that he survived. And in interviews, he was asked, obviously, what pushed him to do it. And he said, well, I thought I had problems. And you know what? The moment I jumped out of the window of the building, I realised I only had one problem. The fact that I jumped out of the bloody building. And another thing he said, which is very true when I look back on my life, is that suicide is a very permanent solution to an often, and I will say often because for some people sadly it can be permanent, but generally speaking for the majority of people it's a permanent solution for a temporary problem. Things can get better, things can change. Even more so if you start to take control and responsibility for yourself, which ultimately is what I had to do. And I obviously still wanted all that pain to stop. And so I went to the library where I was getting magic books from and such like. And next to where the magic books were in the adult library, because my skill by that time, I know it sounds big-headed, but I was doing magic tricks from sort of the age of 4 when I worked on the Golden Mile in Blackpool briefly with my dad on the Paul Daniels Magic Museum. And any money I was earning, I was buying tricks, and I was fortunate enough to get shown how to use them in a more professional manner than came with the instructions by the man himself, Paul Daniels. And so I went in the adult library. I was getting, and where the adult, well, it's still the same now actually, but there's a category, the library book number category thing. I've forgotten what it's called, but anyway, next to where the sports and pastime books are the psychology and self-help. And I saw the spine of a book, and it said How to Win Friends and Influence People by Dale Carnegie. And it's an excellent book to read, but I learned a few lessons the hard way. Okay, that most people maybe don't realise. And the first is, do not take the contents of that book too literally. One of the things it says is a person's name is to them the most beautiful word on the planet, and that you should use it regularly. So, for example, if you meet somebody new, you go, what's your name? Oh, David, nice to meet you, David. So what is it you do, David? And this is kind of the way it comes across. It's telling you to keep using their name. Let me tell you that in the real world, especially in pubs, bars, nightclubs, and most business settings as well, if you find out somebody's name and start using it at the start or middle of every bloody sentence, what's more likely to happen rather than winning friends and influencing people is you getting a punch in the fucking face, or not getting the contract that you were hoping to negotiate. The things actually become counterproductive. So don't take these things quite as literally as they're often written up. The other thing I found is that while some of the techniques in there do work wonderfully in the real world when you're an adult, when you are still a child dealing with other children, they don't work quite as well. Nonetheless, it set me on my quest that made me then end up reading a book by sheer fluke by a gentleman called Emile Coué, E-M-I-L-E, Coué, C-O-U-E. Now, the non-hypnotists may have heard of him because he's very famous for coining a self-affirmation, a positive thinking phrase of day by day, in every way, I'm getting better and better. and that he would advocate that people say this to themselves. Well, what he actually advocated is that you've got a piece of string or rope, and you tied 20 knots in it. And you used it kind of like a Catholic's rosary by pulling the knots through the fingers of one hand. And each time a knot went through, you would say to yourself, day by day, in every way, I'm getting better and better. Or day by day, in every way, I'm feeling better and better, if you'd been feeling down. And you could tweak it slightly, but ultimately the key phrase was day by day, in every way, I'm getting better and better. And through repetition, 20 times of it being pulled through, first thing in the morning when you awaken, which is called the hypnopompic state. It's that state where you haven't fully woken up, you haven't drunk your cup of coffee yet, or whatever else you use to wake up in the morning. That's when the mind, the left and right brains are still kind of in what they call hemisync, which is kind of synchronized together. You've still got direct communication with the unconscious, subconscious mind. And you would do it at the middle of the day when you're effectively in full consciousness, and at the end of the day, just before you close your eyes to go to sleep at night, which is when you're feeling tired, which is called the hypnagogic state, G-O-G-I-C, which again is where both sides of the brain, in the metaphor of psychology, and I say the metaphor of psychology because all conventional psychology is bullshit as much as it is real, because all of it is just constructs and theories, and things that were once considered to be genuine, factual, correct have in recent years been proven to be bullshit, and things that were considered to be bullshit until the past couple of years have now proven to actually be true and have foundation, so it would seem in fact. They're just constructs, the metaphors, the ways of looking at things. But when it works for the majority of the people, the majority of the time, because there's nothing on this planet that works 100% of the time for 100% of the people. And anyone who tells you there is either purposely trying to mislead you or really needs to do a bit more research themselves. And I'm not just talking about hypnosis, I'm on about all complementary alternative medicine, all alternative medicine, all conventional medicine. There's nothing that works 100% of the time with 100% of the people to 100% of the same level. There just isn't. Anyway, I digress. We're very close to starting, which if I said it'd be about an hour and a half in total, because we're just about to actually start the meet. So I got the MLQA book, and in there it also taught a thing called the law of reversed effort, which in the fields of hypnotherapy and NLP they refer to in the sense of what resists persists. In other words, you get more of what you focus on. If you focus on negative thoughts all the time, you end up feeling shitty. You focus on positive, good things. I'm not saying you're going to become a millionaire, but you feel better than if you focus on negative. You also attract into your life, and I don't mean in some winky-wanky, arty-farty, tree-hugging, bullshitty, the secret law of attraction, more like the law of fucking bullshit kind of way. No. I mean in more the kind of way where you activate the reticular activating centre of your brain. Okay, this is an example of this in everyday life that we've all had in one form or another, is that you've been driving around, if you're a driver, and you see cars, but no particular car stands out unless it's a mega expensive one or a flashy one, and you've saved up and you go and you buy yourself a brand new, whatever it may be. Let's just say it's a yellow coloured, as daft as it sounds for the example, but a yellow coloured Ford Fiesta, okay? And you're driving around in a yellow Ford Fiesta, dead proud that you've got one, it's new, it's special to you, and suddenly you see another yellow Ford Fiesta and another and another. Obviously the colours and makes of car can vary, but I think you get what I'm saying. We've all had experiences like that. There's something that's suddenly become personally important and relevant to us in life, suddenly seems to start showing up more and more around us. And this isn't coincidence, it's nothing paranormal, supernatural or anything. It's just that the rest of the time we've had what's termed in conventional psychology circles as attentional blindness. We've been blind to the fact that these things have always been there. because they weren't personally relevant to us at that time. And that's a key point of what we'll be talking about, personal relevance. So, the law of reversed effort. It's something that stage hypnotists use when they get people to put their hands together and suggest to them that they're locking, gluing, welding, cementing, tighter and tighter together with every breath that you take. Every noise that you hear and every word that I say, you're serving as a sign and a signal that it's almost as if there's a steel bolt through the back of your hands, locking, gluing, welding, cementing them together, and various suggestions or commands of that kind of nature. And then ultimately they turn around and say, okay, everyone, just prove to yourself it's worked and just try to separate your hands. And that word try is a suggestion that it will not be possible to separate the hands, because the word try implies that they may not be able to. So it allows that seed, that element of doubt, to enter the person's mind. And the moment that seed is planted, it can grow. So even if they only get a slight feeling of, my fingers and hands feel tired, which guess what, they do when you've been squeezing them together for a few minutes and some nutter on stage has been shouting stuff at you. But when they identify that little feeling of tiredness in the fingers, their rationalisation process in the brain can go, blimey, I can normally open my fingers dead easily. This must mean that my hands are locked together. The hypnotist said they would be, and therefore they must be. And they stop trying to open them anymore. And what happens is that seed grows and becomes a different reality for them in that moment. A reality where their hands are, they believe, locked, glued and welded and cemented together. They're not, but they believe they are. And to them it feels like they are, and just so long as it feels like and they believe in that moment, then what's the three letters in the middle of believe? L-I-E, lie. They're being the lie, or they're being, B-E, L-I-V-E, live in that moment, the lie. And the clues are there. It'll become clearer when we start. But this got me to nearly leaving school, and I thought, I've had enough. This law of reversed effort thing, apparently if it can lock people's hands together and scramble their brain, and almost, there's another thing talked about in NLP called pattern interrupts. This is the concept of doing something that is not fitting the pattern of normal everyday life. So when you go to a business meeting, for example, or meet somebody new at a party, it's quite conventional for a man to put their hand out and shake hands. Prior to this pandemic it was anyway. And you'd shake hands, and that was the expected pattern. Oh, the person I'm just meeting's put their hand out in front of them, I'll put my hand out back, grasp their hand, shake it and say, hi, nice to meet you, or another nicety. If, however, at that moment of meeting somebody, as I often do when a stranger walks up on stage, that moment they walk towards me, I put my hand out as though I'm going to shake them by the hand and go, hi, what's your name? But before they can grab hold of my hand and do the handshake, they've said their name. It might be, let's say, David again. And rather than allowing them to grab my hand and shake my hand, which is the pattern they expect to be, I go and grab their wrist, bring their hand up in front of their face and go, David, as your hand comes towards your face, as it touches your face now, you just close your eyes and sleep! And I'd literally shout, sorry if that was suddenly incredibly loud, because that's the point, it's a pattern interrupt, it's a shock. It causes disorientation and confusion. It puts them into that fight, flight, freeze or shite state of mind and body and physiology. Fight being like, I know this isn't historically true, okay, because what I'm going to say, but it illustrates the psychological principle. The idea of the caveman meeting a dinosaur. I know that could never happen historically, okay, so don't write in about that one. But caveman meets dinosaur. Does he fight and potentially kill dinosaur and take home food for the family? Flight, run like the fucking clappers to get away. Shite, which is literally drop his load, shit, shit themselves, because animals still do this in nature, because hopefully the stench from that shit causes something that makes the dinosaur want to leave the situation. Or freeze, that moment of the brain going, what shall I do? Shall I run? Shall I stay? What do? What's my best? And freeze, and at that moment it's often too late. Well, with the stage hypnotist, it's that moment of freeze that is the closest thing to anything I would ever defy as being a genuine hypnotic state. But we'll come into that more in a minute. So here's the point. Before I left high school, I started to use the law of reversed effort. The next time that the school bully, because I got bullied again at high school, and physically bullied, beat up and verbally, when I got pinned to the wall one day by the neck by the school bully, before he had a chance to hit me and do his usual piss taking with his little gang behind him laughing their head off, I suddenly turned around and said, "What are you waiting for? Just bloody try and hit me now, you nutter. Go on, try and hit me now. What are you wasting time for?" And you could almost see their eyes glaze over like, what the fuck is going on? It's pattern interrupt. It didn't fit the pattern of what the person expected. And it kind of flicked them into fight, freeze or shite. It felt uncomfortable to them. It wasn't what they were used to. And ultimately, they ended up letting go of me. And then kind of pushed me away from them and went, "Get away from me, you fucking idiot." Excuse the language, but that's what they said. And they turned to their gang of people and went, "Let's leave the fucking idiot. He's not worth wasting time on." I never got bullied again after that day. Not that it helped immensely, because by that point there was literally a matter of only maybe another 12 months left of high school, and that last 12 months I was very rarely in school anyway, because I was doing psychic fairs and also seeing hypnotherapy clients lying about my age. So along that journey, one final piece that I missed out was that at the age of 14 I saw an advert in the Exchange of Mart, a British magazine. It's very thin now, but it used to be quite thick pre-internet days, and there was a section with blue pages that was business opportunities. And in there I saw an advert that said, "Train with the Association of Professional Hypnotherapists and Parapsychologists," as it was called at the time. It later changed its name to the Association of Professional Hypnotherapists and Psychotherapists. The story behind that's fully explained on my website, magicalguru.com, along with how, well, the legal battles that have been involved in that, but that's not for today. It's all explained on my website if you want to go down that rabbit hole later. The point is, I took this correspondence course, mail order. I lied about my age, because obviously I figured that they wouldn't want a 14-year-old doing such a course. I took the course, I submitted the exam, I passed the exam with flying colours, and at the age of 14 and a half, I became, well, they didn't know at the time, I became the youngest ever member of the Association of Professional Hypnotherapists and Psychotherapists, as it's now become. But they thought I was 18. And I realised my plan was to go to the local media and get some publicity and then get clients and make some money. But I realised that if I did that, that perhaps it might get back to Brian Howard, who ran the APHP at the time, and that people in the local area may point out that I wasn't actually 18. And to be honest, on reflection, looking back, how I ever thought anyone, just because I put a suit and a shirt on, would ever think I was 18, God only knows. It's obvious from the press cuttings I've got from when I was 14 and 15, claiming to be 18, that I clearly wasn't 18, but they still printed it as though it was fact that I was. So I contacted them when the article went in and said, "Look, I've got to come clean before somebody contacts you and says I'm not 18, because they might do. The truth is, I'm only 14 and a half. After a couple of weeks, I got a response back from Brian Howard by letter, because this was pre-internet days, and there was a new diploma inside, which had my correct date of birth on, and a cover letter that officially stated I was the youngest ever member, and that the simple fact is that I passed the exam. And I passed it with higher marks than most people who'd ever taken the exam. I'm not saying that to brag, I'm just saying that's my backstory that set me off doing hypnotherapy when I was 14. When I was 15, at the psychic fairs I was doing, we had to do like a half-hour demonstration in the morning and a half-hour in the afternoon, each of us readers, so that the psychic fair promoter could justify charging money on the door for people to come in. And then their argument was that by us doing it, we'd be more likely that people would want to come to us for tarot readings or palmistry or whatever nonsense we were doing. So I did this, but I thought, well, I'm not standing up and doing the contacting the dead stuff, or at least I didn't intend to. I did segue into that at one point, and for a period of time I toured the civic halls and provincial little 300 to 600 seater theatre venues in the northwest of England in 1990 and 91 era, as documented by Psychic News articles that you can find on my Facebook profile, or by going through the Psychic News online archives that are there. You'll see that they dubbed me the new Uri Geller and Doris Stokes rolled into one, and proclaimed me as the next best thing in spiritualism because I was so bloody accurate. The reason I was accurate is because I was using techniques I'd learned from the arena of magic, mind reading and deception and trickery. That's how I could be so... I segue slightly, but you'll see all this interrelates because the clock's about to tick, and actually I've already covered some of it. So actually what I said was going to be an hour, turns out it's probably only going to be 45 minutes. Ooh. So I started doing the locked hands thing, locking people's hands together, and as a demonstration of mind power, and that we're capable of more than we think we are, and all that kind of stuff. And then I get a couple of people up and I make one forget the number 7, so that in a few moments' time when I awaken you, you can no longer count, say or think the number 7. It's like the number 7's completely disappeared. And a few other funny things like making them not be able to say the name and stuff. I was effectively doing a 30 to 45 minute stage hypnosis show, but without any music, in the psychic fairs and practicing it. And by the time I was 16, I actually hired a venue and put on a show. Failed miserably, that one. I had to refund everyone on the night, but that's another story for another time. Then I hired the Bridge Hall Hotel, a bridge on the way to Bury, which is no longer there. It's now a B&Q. And did a show there that got videoed. Went remarkably well, and some of the footage from that, when I am literally only 16 years old, is on my YouTube channel, Celebrity Hypnotist. And if you go through, you'll see some clips of me in a blue mohair suit where I look incredibly young. That's because I am. I'm 16, and it says on it, circa 1991. And then I did a show at... I managed to hire the little theatre in Hotwood Old College at the Middleton campus in 1990, early 92. And then those two videotapes, I didn't get them edited together, but one of the pivotal things I did was that I ended up, my accountant at the time was a guy called Stan Sunderland, no longer with us. I know that Anne and Phil, who were on Clubhouse, who you may hear from one or both of them later, knew Stan, and Stan obviously knew them. And ultimately, long story cut short, Stan said he'd seen the videos and he said, why don't you start, actually getting bookings doing that rather than just doing your magic shows and stuff that I was doing. And I very quickly found out that at the time, hypnotists got paid more than magic shows, and there was a bit more demand for it. It was building up. It was the start of the karaoke craze that really built up until it all screwed up in late 93, early 94. But again, that's an entirely different story. The point being that Stan introduced me to a gentleman called Phil Barrett, who had a company called Music Business Management in Rochdale, and he came along to my house, well, my parents' house, rather, because at the time that I'm talking about, we're talking 1993. Could have been late 92, but it was probably 93. Certainly it was the end of 93 where Phil, having seen these videos with his, at the time, friend and colleague Pete King, who's sadly also no longer with us, had me out working the hypnosis show basically 7 nights a week, and there were occasions where, well, quite regularly, where I was doing 2 shows, pub then a nightclub, or pub then a working men's club, or I've still got the bloody old contract somewhere. There was one occasion where I did 4 in a day. There was a lunchtime, what they used to call like the strippers gig. Then there was a later on one at a different venue doing that. Then there was a pub, and then there was a nightclub somewhere. 4 in a bloody... Anyway, did a wonderful job of getting me out there. And I did the act believing at that time, and this is the key before we actually start properly, believing that I was hypnotising people. Yeah, I don't mind admitting it. At that time, I believed I was putting people in some kind of special state. I believed the bullshit I'd read in all the books on stage hypnosis I'd read. I believed all the bullshit I'd read in the vast number of books on hypnotherapy that I'd read. And I believed that that's what I was doing when I was doing hypnotherapy on people. Well, it must be, because that's why they were stopping smoking. That's why they were overcoming the phobias. That's why they were doing the silly things. So it must be right, because that's what all these consistent experts were saying. But here's the thing, and this is it. 3, 2, 1, the clock starts ticking now. These are the shocking real truths about hypnotism, hypnosis, hypnotherapy, hypnotic techniques, NLP, mind programming, call it what you fucking want. All of it. It doesn't matter what label you give it. It's all complete and utter bullshit. Okay? However, does that mean I'm saying it doesn't work? Of course not. I can't sit here and tell you that due to the fact that I turned 46 this August, and I have been doing, because of the psychic fair stuff, arguably doing stage hypnosis performances since I was 15 years old. Over 31 years when it comes to August. And the vast majority of the time, they've worked wonderfully. So the vast majority, in the early days, there were times when I died on my arse. That very rarely happens now, because, not just because I've got more experience than the vast majority of people out there, it's because of the realisation I came to. And once I realised that eureka moment, I've been able to do things with stage hypnosis and hypnotherapy that the vast majority of hypnotherapy trainers, the vast majority of stage hypnosis trainers, the vast majority of stage hypnotists and hypnotherapists say are not possible. To which I say, you carry on discussing whether it's not possible or not, while I'm busy travelling the world actually fucking doing it and being the one featured on TV. Being the one that USA Today, America's biggest circulated newspaper, rang up when they wanted a British hypnotist to have a therapeutic encounter with Robert De Niro and Billy Crystal to help promote the launch of their film, analyse that. Again, I chuck in the odd bit that sounds like I'm bragging. Because, yeah, I am kind of bragging, but because I want you to realise that when I tell you the cold hard truth of the next 45 minutes, it's not me saying it doesn't work. It does work. The key is I'm saying it doesn't work for the reasons that the vast majority of people think it does. And I challenge any working stage hypnotist, any working hypnotherapist, anyone who studied conventional psychology to try to prove me wrong beyond any reasonable doubt. I guarantee you won't be able to. Because the thing is this, once I had the eureka moment that I'm going to share with you, I also then went searching and discovered that all the scientific, as in conventional science, not pseudoscience, the conventional science exists to back up and prove what I discovered in my eureka moment as being the correct conclusion. And also, if we apply Occam's razor, that theory of the simplest solution, generally speaking, is indeed the correct one, and is more likely to be the correct one if the only reason for having a more complicated explanation is for someone to financially benefit from it, which, of course, all these hypnotherapy schools and self-help training organisations stand to. That's why they fucking hate me, the majority of them, except the ones that I taught, which is an ever-increasing number, of course. But even some of them publicly will make out they don't like me or know me, and then in private they'll, you know, go out for beers with me. And that's not them being two-faced, that's because they're actually following my business advice, some of them. Could I still mentor some of the biggest names in stage hypnosis and hypnotherapy in the entire world? Again, try and prove me wrong, but I can tell you without fear of contradiction, that British television life coaches, the Speakmans, I was involved in their journey to getting them their regular slot on This Morning. Their first DVD set they brought out called You Can Be Cured, I was the hypnotic advisor on. I organised that event. I advertised it through my company, KMA Public Relations, which stands for Kiss My Arse. I also, if you get their audio CD, The Key to Becoming the Best Ever You, this is quite a funny story, because I sell something called Life Changes, and it's an audio program to help you overcome habits, addictions, fears or phobias from A through to Z. It's structured in a certain way that whatever you want to deal with, it will do, and it does do massively successfully. So successfully that the Speakmans wanted to license the script. And they did. And they've got my full permission. And if you get a copy of the CD from Amazon or eBay or whatever, they're using my, what I call complete mind therapy treatment script with full permission and license, okay? Make that very clear now. Before I tell you that one day I got a refund request on eBay with a person going, I am absolutely fuming that you have sold me someone else's copyrighted materials and copied what they said word for word. So I responded back to them and I said, could you please tell me who? Because it's not only them that I've licensed it to around the world. There's many famous name mind therapists all around the world that sell various self-help products that I wrote the scripts for. And they came back with the names I just mentioned. And I said, well, here's the thing. I'm not saying you should go back and ask them for a refund, but if that's your only basis for a refund, please be aware, as it clearly states on my advert, I wrote this script, I own the copyright on it. Anyone else using it is licensed by me. I don't know what they did in terms of asking for a refund from elsewhere, but they ended up apologising to me. Again, I don't say that to brag. I want you to realise, before I tell you what this monumental truth of stage hypnosis, hypnotherapy, in fact, a key to life this is, it works on so many levels, because it works with all complementary alternative medicine, it works with all alternative medicine, it works with all belief systems, pretty much, and it's also the key, pretty much even, to some degree, to conventional medicine as well, because conventional medicine, like it or lump it, if you go to Thackeray Medical Museum in Bradford, there's a section in there about the placebo effect, and there's a wonderful sign that says, look at the history of conventional medicine, and you're looking at the history of the placebo effect. And that is very true, more so than you may realise just now, but you will over the coming minutes. So what I want you to realise is this, and this is the final bit of what may sound like bragging, but I need you to understand why my conclusions came about, why I'm able to say this with some level of authority. Now, by all means, go and try and disprove anything I say afterwards, like I said. Anyone who's joining us partway through, the replay will be available on Facebook. I'll post a link tomorrow. Then go, as your starting point, to magicalguru.com, which is magicalguru.com. And I give you loads of places. It sends you off to loads of places. There's stuff I've done on TV there, stuff I've done on the radio, there's shows I've done around the world, there's testimonials from sporting teams that I've helped, such as Wigan Athletics suddenly getting themselves in the Premiership, literally the week after I'd hypnotised them. There's a whole bunch of stuff on there that basically looks like somebody claiming to be the most experienced and skillful stage hypnotist, hypnotherapist and hypnotic expert in the world. Which obviously can't possibly be true, can it? I can't possibly be the most knowledgeable, arguably most experienced, and sadly not on the financial level, not the most financially successful. I'm afraid Mr. McKenna definitely gets that element. But you know the irony? Even Paul McKenna, he ran a company called McKenna Breen Limited in London with a gentleman called Michael Breen, one of the leading life coach trainers and teachers. And when I put my complete mind therapy training course together and released it through the Mind Care organisation in 1996, 7, thereabouts, we had every single staff member that Paul McKenna employed for his live seminars. We're talking like pretty much about just close to 100 people, with all the seminar facilitators, as they call them, people that keep an eye, because they'd have, like, you know, 1,500 people in a room teaching them NLP, so they'd have them break up into groups of 50 or 100, so they need people to look after them. All of those staff members, everyone who worked in the office, all of them took my course. And on the application form, where it asked, how did you hear about this course, time and time again, it said personally recommended by Paul McKenna. And I've regularly stated that on the internet, and there's a reason why I've never been sued for saying it. It's because it's true. In the same way as I can tell you that a company called Objective Television Productions, and this does become relevant in a minute, I am going to give you that key that's promised. That's why it's called Hypnotism Exposed, the shocking real truths about hypnosis. But I want you to realise that I'm speaking from experience and a firm foundation, a foundation that nobody else has really got. Objective Television Productions is the company that made Derren Brown famous, the British mentalist, mind reader, mind control expert, mind magician, call him what you will. It was run by a friend of mine, the late Anthony Owen, and former comedian and magician turned TV producer Andrew O'Connor. There may have been some investment as well with Michael Vine, who has Michael Vine Associates, who is Derren's manager. Anyway, that was the company at the time, and they had advisors employed for Derren, such as a gentleman called Andy Nyman, who is also the wonderful writer and actor in a play called Ghost Stories that he wrote. A gentleman called Luke Jamay, who is a wonderful mind reader, and various others. They have a team around them. I can categorically tell you that Objective Productions and most of the team members that I've mentioned have purchased practically every single DVD training set that I've ever released on mentalism, mind magic, stage hypnosis and hypnotherapy. And I can categorically tell you that Derren Brown has used on a number of occasions in his television shows and specials ideas that are in my DVDs and do not appear in anyone else's training DVDs prior to the day I release mine, as in people have copied stuff since and tried to pass it off as their own. Am I basically saying that stuff of mine's been used by Derren Brown on TV? Yes. Am I saying that Objective Productions have actually used stuff of mine every episode of an entire television series they put out on Channel 4? Yeah, they have. The fact is, I am the backroom boy for some of the biggest names in the world, most of which I can't mention because of non-disclosure agreements, sadly. It's only because these elements are in the public domain, because they've been discussed at things like Blackpool Magic Convention in front of magicians and witnesses galore, with Andy Nyman actually stood there confirming that they had bought stuff off me and had used ideas, that I can actually mention it. But generally, so, you know, anyone listening who's thinking, I'd like to consult with him, but he's going to go and brag it to everyone. No, believe me, I've not even scraped the surface on the people that I've advised around the world and still advise. I can categorically tell you this and try to prove me wrong. I am coming to the secret, but I want you to know this isn't about bragging. This is about you realising that when I tell you what is the truth, and it's shocking, the truth I'm going to tell you, that you need to know that I am not saying that it doesn't work. Of course it works, which is why I can proudly and accurately state that I have taught more of the people who are currently working worldwide as professional comedy stage hypnotists than any other living trainer of stage hypnosis today. And I'm talking about people who are filling regularly performing night after night when pandemics are not occurring on 5-star luxury cruise ships. I'm talking about people who've got their own television series in their own countries. I'm talking about people who are filling out multi-thousand-seater venues in their countries, such as Canada and various states of America, places in Asia. Pretty much the top cream of stage hypnosis in the world, with the exception of the people who are in it before me, You know, the likes of Paul McKenna, Ken Webster, Andrew Newton, Peter Powers, those kind of people who were in it before me, and Tom Silver in America, Kreskin, you know, and a few others. Obviously, they were doing it before. I'm not claiming credit for them, although, you know, some of my stuff has been used. Peter Powers' TV show Street Hypnosis that was on Bravo, who was one of the people that the production company used for ideas and scripts. I'll give you a clue. First name begins with a J, second name begins with an R. Yeah. Tom Silver, actually, yeah, actually, just come to think of it, although obviously he was doing it way before me, Tom presented a show in America called The Extreme Truth on the Playboy channel briefly, before a guy called Justin Trance took it over, because they wanted to push it even further. That was bought, they licensed that show, The Extreme Truth, from what they call in television circles a treatment. It's kind of an outline of what a TV show could be and about. And in TV circles, it's called a treatment. Well, I'd written a treatment for a show that I called Hypnotism and Sex. And I gave it to a company called Objective Productions and also a company called Channel 4. And ultimately, The Extreme Truth in America that Tom Silver fronted and then Justin Trance did was licensed from Objective Television Productions, who released their show, Hypnosex, which basically my show. Yes, indeed. Again, prove me wrong. Try to. I'm not bragging. I'm telling you the truth. The fact is, when you're established name stage hypnotist, a lot of them even that were in it years before me, when the shit hits the fan and someone accuses them of having injured them at a show or something, who do they come to for legal advice? Because who is considered to be the world's leading expert on the 1952 Hypnotism Act, 1989 government guidelines, 1996 government review, updated model conditions and the Licensing Act, which also varied, outdated, eliminated, added to and changed all elements of those laws. And who is the person who's put out the world's most comprehensive training package on health and safety and duty of care and well-being of the volunteers and clients when it comes to therapy, not the entertainment side? Yes, me again. Now that sounds like I'm bragging. Yes, I am, but it's so that it leads up to this. Get ready. Some of you are going to be disappointed by what the big secret is. Others are going to be angry. Others will be upset. All of you will find, no doubt, I'm sure, if you use your powers of intelligence, imagination and concentration effectively, as I'm sure you will, that over the coming minutes of the next hours and as you sleep tonight, when you wake up in the morning, not only will you awaken with an inner warm glow of confidence and renewed optimism to life and a more positive attitude to get things done, but it'll be like a magic light bulb's been switched on, and you'll see how this that I'm about to share with you emanates and radiates and filters out into all areas of your daily life from cradle to grave. So here it is. The key, most valuable discoveries that I found, and I say the key, most valuable ones. This isn't everything I know. Of course it isn't. I can't tell you everything I know in the next sort of 20 minutes or so before I open it up to questions or comments. That'd be daft to claim I could. But I can give you the key essence and then tell you that if you want to expand on that essence, go to magicalguru.com and click on where it says free stuff. I don't even want you to buy anything to start with. Go there and click on where it says free stuff and download the free training videos or the free training manuals and dip your toe in the water to learn more about it, so that you can become a better stage hypnotist or a better hypnotherapist or someone who's more safe at using magic combined with mentalism and mind reading. Or maybe you want to learn how to use hypnotic language patterns in sales to convert more sales from your emails, from your sales letters, from your websites. These are all areas that I do with blue chip companies and stuff in different channels of my business, which you'll see on the website. But I don't want you to spend money. I want you to dip your toe in the water and have some free videos, have some free books and look at them. And then if you see the value in what you get for free, you'll know that if you were to invest a few quid here and there, that actually you're going to get value that's off the Richter scale. That is why, although a lot of my clients have non-disclosure agreements with me, and if you want that, it can be done, but you do pay more for non-disclosure, obviously. there are people who have happily come out and put their name to it. So if you go on my website, look at testimonials, you'll see that British Sky TV's Fat Families presenter, Steve Miller, the founder of Hypnosis, you see him on an almost daily basis in one of the UK national daily papers, or on a radio show, or on TV, discussing weight loss and weight-related issues. He categorically states, I am the best hypnosis trainer on the planet, basically. And the video of him stating such is on, so much so he put his money where his mouth is, and he ended up getting a room that would seat a maximum of 100 people, and he got 100 medical GPs, nurses, clinical psychologists, plastic surgeons, counsellors, as in, I don't mean MP counsellors, but psychological counsellors, people with conventional medical qualifications. And he put me kind of like going into the lion's den type of thing scenario it was. And the result of that was that either 100 people in the room, or the majority, was still going to think that what I shared with them at the end of the day was bullshit. And I'd likely get booed, and Steve would be getting refund requests galore, which he said he would happily honour, because he put that in the advertising. And there were people that came that were very vocal, especially from the medical profession, of saying that what could I teach them in 6 hours over the course of an 8-hour day with lunch and breaks that would lead them to the conclusion that what they'd learned previously was wrong and what I told them was right. And Steve said, just come, you can have your money back. What happened is, and you can see the video on hypnotismexposed.com, what happened at the end is I got 2, not 1, 2 standing ovations, and every person, well, not every person, one person didn't, because I let them have free access, but 99% of the people in that room then invested hundreds of pounds with me to become a member of my Elite Hypnosis Bootcamp, despite the fact they spent thousands over the years, and before they came to the event they thought they didn't have anything to learn. Now the key essence of what I taught them in that 6 hours, I'm going to tell you in the next, looking at the time on my clock, it's 12 minutes past 4, in the next less than 20 minutes before we open it up to any comments or questions. So here goes, get ready for this. We'll cover stage hypnotism first. Stage hypnotism, here's the key. And yes, there is a lot more to it than this. Stage hypnotists who listen to the replay of this or are on it now, of course there's more to it than this. But this is the key essence. Everything else is window dressing to make it look more impressive. The bottom line is this. As a stage hypnotist, you're an actor playing the part of what the audience member and volunteers perceive and believe a stage hypnotist should be. I learnt that the hard way when I ended up working for Richard Branson in Barbados, doing a celebrity party. The celebrity party was okay, actually, because most of them were from all over the world and they'd heard of the concept of stage hypnosis. But he threw a party the night before that one for people on the Barbadians, the actual people who lived there, who worked for him there, but were from there. And I went out to do my show, and I'm doing the locked hands, and yeah, it worked. But basically, it came to light that nobody knew what a stage hypnotist was. They didn't know what to expect, what was meant to happen, how it was meant to happen. So I literally had to spend over half an hour educating them to get them to a point where their state of mind and expectations were such that I could then become the actor playing the part of what the audience perceived and believed a stage hypnotist should be. They've got to have an expectation, a belief, an idea in their mind, otherwise it just simply won't work. So how does it work? Why does Barry or Frida, don't know why Victoria Wood's characters came to mind there, but Barry or Frida get up on stage and make a complete and utter set of twats of themselves? Because that's what it is. Stage hypnosis is a glorified freak show where the stage hypnotist gets paid for making people, and I don't care how, you know, stage hypnotists will try and go, don't worry, you are the stars of the show. People will be laughing with you, not at you. Fuck off. The audience are laughing at them. They're not laughing with them. When we say the audience are laughing with you, not at you, it's to stop them thinking about the fact the audience is laughing so that they're more likely to volunteer. All that we are really doing is providing a perceptively safe environment by looking professional, assuming that you do, by the way we're dressed, by the way we walk around confidently, by the advertising in advance looking successful, by the people in this social media age being able to find social proof by going on YouTube and finding videos. And, you know, the more you've been on television, the more social proof you've got. No offence to people who've not been on TV, but it just makes it easier. The next level from that is the more you've been in the media, the more it helps. The next level down is the more you've got videos up there of doing shows at places that are similar to the venue you're going to be performing in the night that that person's going to see you. So there's some kind of resonance or connection. You can call it conditioning, brainwashing going on in advance, whatever you want to call it. That is an element. Then on the night, this is the key. They have got the perfect excuse to make an idiot of themselves. That really is it. They've got a complete, utter, perfect excuse to make an idiot of themselves. Because afterwards, they can either A, go back to the audience and pretend they don't remember anything. And then all their family and friends will be going, well, you did this, you did that. And you go, did I? Did I? Oh, hypnotist made me do it. What this does is it absolves them of all responsibility for making an idiot of themselves. They can't be blamed for it. But also it puts them in a position where they get more attention. And they feel special and the star of the show, even though the show is finished. Or they might take the strategy of coming back to the audience and going, when asked, do you remember doing that? Going, yeah, I vaguely remember some bits, but I just couldn't stop myself from doing it. Which again creates a context where the hypnotist is to blame, not the volunteer. The truth is, every volunteer on a stage hypnosis show knows exactly what they're bloody doing. Yes, they do. Some of them may actually convince themselves, because some of the physical tricks that stage hypnotists use, and I'm not going to go into them, but there are physical tricks. There's ways of holding your hands that if they're held in a certain position, it's basically physically impossible to separate them. And then we can present that in a manner where when the people find they're unable to separate their hands, they come to believe that's because of the suggestions we gave them of them gluing together. And the moment they believe we say something, they imagine it and it becomes their reality. The moment they kind of give up consciously analysing things and the critical faculty analytical area of the brain goes, I'm not required, and they just instantly react to whatever you tell them to do. Whether that be, in a few moments when you hear this next piece of music, you'll become the world's greatest living reincarnation of Elvis Presley, whatever it may be. The point is they know exactly what they are doing. And they do it. Hypnosis is cooperation, not confrontation in those environments. So they've got the ultimate excuse. The hypnotist made me do it. Either way, it's the hypnotist made me do it, but it's the hypnotist made me do it and I can't remember, or the hypnotist made me do it and I can a bit, but I couldn't stop myself. Either way, it removes all self-blame, shame, guilt and regret from them for having made a tit of themselves. And then they can just also be the star of the show afterwards and people are buying them drinks and whatnot and going, oh, you were really funny. And because there's no reason for the people to be able to say, well, you're an idiot, why did you do that any longer? Because the hypnotist made me do it. They then become the star of their own little show after the show as well. To the point where some people will delude themselves and convince themselves they've been genuinely hypnotised. But the truth is, hypnosis itself doesn't exist. It's purely suggestion. Hypnosis exists only in the mind of the believer who thinks it does. So, hypnotherapy. What's the key to that? Well, first, let me tell you this. I should have said this before stage as well, because it's one of the motivating factors of why people want their 15 minutes of fame on the stage. It's an escape, especially when they know they can't be blamed for it, is that as human beings, all of us, whether we will admit it or not consciously, but deep down, we want to feel loved, wanted, needed, appreciated, cared for, cherished and valued. Now, they all sound very similar. But actually, if you get a thesaurus and check the words out, loved, wanted, needed, appreciated, cared for, cherished and valued, they all have very different meanings. Some of them relate to things that could be deemed as self-confidence. Some are self-respect, some are self-esteem, some are self-worth, some are self-love. Okay? I haven't got time to dwell on that more, but I want you to realise you can investigate those avenues further. They have far deeper meanings than just what the words mean initially. So human beings want to feel loved, wanted, needed, appreciated, cared for, cherished or valued. Or rather, they need to. Because if they don't fully feel loved, wanted, needed, appreciated, cared for, cherished and valued, if there's an imbalance or a lacking in any one of those 7 or a combination thereof, then it will have a knock-on effect on their self-confidence, self-image, self-esteem or self-control. And self-control is aka willpower. And if there's any imbalance on any of those 4 things, it will have a knock-on effect on their self-worth, self-respect, self-love and selfishness, but positive selfishness. Because sometimes you've got to be selfish and do stuff for yourself before you can be selfless and help other people. The analogy for that is the aeroplane, where the parent, single parent with 3 kids, emergency happens, they start putting the masks onto the kids, and after they put on 1.5 masks, they pass out unconscious, and 2 of the kids then end up passing out, and it's a nightmare situation. That's why the air stewardess say, put yours on first, because that way you don't pass out. But if your kids are passed out while you're putting yours on, it doesn't matter, because you're then still conscious to be able to put their masks on. Sometimes you have to be selfish to be selfless. And that ties in with having a good level of self-respect, feelings of self-worth and self-love. And I'm not a singer, so I apologise for how bad this will sound. I'm not going to sing, I'm just going to try and say it a bit singified. But a song I refer people to as a key to hypnotherapy is The Greatest Love of All. Because the words say it, they're the key. I believe the children are our future. Treat them well and let them lead the way. Show them all the beauty they possess inside. Give them a sense of pride to make it easier. Let the children's laughter remind us how it used to be. Key. All of us, whether we're 20 years old, 30, 40, 50, 60, 70, 80 years old. All of us, that little child is still there inside us. And here's the thing. Sigmund Freud, you may know him better as Sigmund Freud, once said that the formative years of 0, birth, to roughly 7, he said, but in my experience, it's to around teenage years, puberty, that matters from birth. During those times is when all our psychological foundations are built up positively or fucked up negatively. Generally, it's a combination of both for the vast majority of people. And these get ingrained into our unconscious, subconscious minds, if you like, are the hard drives of our personal neck-top computers. And it doesn't matter what positive programs we try and run in our conscious minds later in life, consciously go, you know what, we'll stop smoking. And you try, that negative word again, try, do or do not, there is no try, as Yoda said in Star Wars. Try to do it, but fail. For a couple of reasons. One I'll talk about in a minute. But one is that because there's that program running in the back of your mind, the key psychological imbalances that have been instilled before you're a teenager. And we can only truly overcome all of our habits, addictions, fears and phobias, or emotional imbalances, or sometimes it can manifest as health problems. You know, an emotional imbalance when you were young can still, it may not always be the cause of a physical pain later in life. That genuinely could be arthritis or some other thing. But if there's underlying psychological imbalances there that were never dealt with from youth, it can amplify genuine pain to make it worse than it needs to be, because your computer is running with crap in the hard drive, is the metaphor I'm going to use. So what you need is a powerful antivirus, a kind of mental mind bleach that can clear those hard drives of the negativity that was instilled from birth until around puberty. Okay? It tends to be stuff you're not consciously aware of. And at the time, if you look back on it now as an adult, you go, well, you know, most people will go, well, there wasn't any particular one event that was particularly that bad. For the majority of people, I know there's abuse victims where there's a standout event. We're not going there tonight, but the principles underlying remain the same. Often it's little things that chip away, and we look back at childhood as an adult and think, well, there's nothing there of concern. But the thing is, the way we were reacted when we were a child, with a child's consciousness and experiences of life, was very different than we do now, to a degree. And I say to a degree because that child's still within us. And this is why I use a lot with my therapy clients a thing called inner child work. And I literally will, when I've hypnotised them, gone through an important seeming ritualistic process, because as I say, hypnosis exists only in the mind of the believer, but some people need to feel as though they've gone through that stereotypical hypnotic induction process in order to do something. Again, for reasons I will give you the final key to in a minute, because this is the monumental bombshell coming up. But it could just be done by getting them to close their eyes. And you can do it yourself. You can sit yourself in a dark room when no one is about. Close your eyes. Get a pillow. Take hold of that pillow. Hug it with your eyes closed. And imagine that you're hugging a mini you. You're hugging you when you were a baby. And then progress forward to hugging you when you were 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13. Go up to 16 if you want. That's generally more than enough for the majority of people. Obviously, there are exceptions. I'm going to generalise, given the short time space available. And if you get to a point, you'll find your unconscious mind will suddenly, it'll tell you, you'll just know when you reach one of the ages that you need to spend a bit more time there. And what you do is you imagine, as you're hugging, so you've got that sensory trigger and feeling of hugging the pillow as the mini you, but in your mind's eye, you're imagining hugging the mini you. You say to the mini you in your mind's eye, I'm sorry, I didn't understand things in life the way that I do now as an adult when I was your age. Please forgive me. I love you. And then you wait a few moments, and as daft as this might sound, with your eyes closed hugging the mini you, you imagine hearing the mini you saying, it's okay, thank you, I love you too, I forgive you, I'm sorry. And you do that through the ages up to 16's more than enough for most people, but you know, everyone's different. This is a massively therapeutic technique. Because what it does is, it lets the inner child that's within you, metaphorically, let go of any self-blame, shame, guilt or regret it may have, or any confusion or fear that may have been stored there by their child-like misunderstanding of a situation, or by their childlike amplification of a situation, blowing it out of all proportion. So think about that inner child thing, because then that inner child, it sounds daft, can feel loved, wanted, needed, appreciated, cared for, cherished and valued. And as a knock-on effect, that will amplify the person's self-confidence, self-image, self-esteem and self-control. And as a knock-on effect, that will amplify their self-worth, their self-love, their self-respect, and that positive selfishness we spoke about earlier, so they can feel whole again, rather than feeling like there's something missing, which is what causes people to try and seek out religion or spiritual beliefs, or to spend thousands of pounds on self-help books and DVDs that never do anything for them, because they're trying to fill that hole with something. What they really need to do is go back and do what we just said. And by doing that, it also clears the crap out of your personal neck-top computer and allows you to move forward. And it is something you can do for yourself. You probably sat there thinking, no, I need a therapist for this. Of course you do. Therapist, spelled T-H-E, the rapist. The worst, a psychotherapist. Psycho, the rapist. Now, I jest, but only slightly. Here's the thing. The word far, F-A-R. F, This is the key to all problems. FAR stands for fear, frustration, failure. A is for anger, anguish, anxiety. R is for resentment, regret, remorse. And fear, we can break that down to false evidence appearing real, or false evidence against reality. It's often a distorted picture. So, what's the opposite? Well, F for forgiveness, A for acceptance, R for realization, and R for release. Forgiveness, acceptance, realization, release. And it's the inner child that needs to forgive, accept, realize and release, as well as us as the adults. And the two together sync together and create that whole by making the person feel loved, wanted, needed, appreciated, cared for, cherished, and valued. And the things I spoke about and that you can find out more about in the free videos at hypnotismexposed.com. So the big key is this to therapy. There's nothing we do as therapists that a client can't do for themselves, because ultimately they do it for themselves. It's just that they need the excuse to change and permission to change. You see, if David woke up in the morning after being addicted to cocaine for 10 years and said, I'm not going to take any more cocaine, if he did that and then bumped into his family and friends who said, oh, you know what, you're looking better, it's clear that you're no longer taking cocaine, you're acting differently, blah, blah, blah. How did you manage that, David? If David said, well, I woke up one morning and I decided to stop taking cocaine, and I haven't done since, some of their friends and family, not all, but someone inevitably would end up saying, well, if it was that bloody easy, why didn't you do it sooner, you bloody idiot? So then the person feels attacked, and they start to run those programs of self-blame, shame, guilt and regret, because deep down they know the only person truly responsible for not having made the changes is themselves. So the easiest way to stop feeling bad is, yep, you guessed it, to relapse and go back to taking the cocaine. Whereas if they go and see a therapist, David, when he bumps into his family and friends, can go, yeah, no, well, it's like this. I had to go and see this therapist. I heard about them. I didn't know about them before, but I read about them in a newspaper. I went to see the therapist. I paid the money. I had to save up the money to go. I had to do the treatment. But now I'm clean. I'm free of cocaine. And some of the family and friends can try and say, well, why didn't you do it sooner if it was that easy? But you can say, well, because I didn't know about this therapy. I didn't know it was an option. So he's got like an invisible safety blanket, an invisible shield, so we can't get blamed for not having done it sooner. So we can let go of that baggage, let go of that self-blame, shame, guilt and regret, and ultimately get on with their life and do what they could have always done. And can it be that simple? Yes, it can, because if you read my autobiography, Confessions of a Hypnotist, a Psychic Hypnotist, which is available on Amazon, you'll discover that I had a period of time in my life where I took a lot of cocaine, and one day I woke up and just said, enough's enough, and I just stopped. Because I discovered this key that you've only got yourself to blame, or yourself to pat on the back. And here's the other key. You can always tell a white lie to your family and friends. Okay? I'm not suggesting that you get up tomorrow and never smoke another cigarette and go out and say, I listened to Jonathan Royal on Clubhouse or on the Facebook Live video, and he made me realise I've only myself to blame, I'll put it out, I can stop, I don't need that, and do some inner child work so that you balance out those emotions I spoke about. But then they could attack you and go, why didn't you do it sooner then? And yeah, you could say, because I've not heard the podcast, but the information is out there to be found. No, just tell a white lie. Leave it a week, then stop, set a date in your diary that you're going to stop smoking or whatever it may be, and then, when it's on your calendar, do it on that day, and if any family member or friend says, why didn't you do it sooner, you've got your personal safety blanket of being able to say, because I've only just saved up the money to go and see the therapist. The fact that you haven't been to see a therapist and you've done it for yourself because you always could do, because there's nothing any mind therapist ever does other than perhaps provide that little feeling of giving you attention for an hour that makes you feel loved, wanted, needed, appreciated, cared for, cherished and valued, and helps those emotional pillars that we spoke about. Yeah, having a human being there as the therapist, that's some of the value you get for paying money. But the truth is, the actual changes you make It's because you're given permission to change, an excuse to change, a safe environment to change in, where any self-blame, shame, guilt or regret is removed from you so that you can't be blamed, so you're less likely to relapse, and so your family and friends can't go mad at you for not having done it sooner. And that's ultimately the key. That, combined with suggestion, which we touched on earlier, combined with manipulation, emotional manipulation of people. On stage, I'm emotionally manipulating people and putting them in a position where I'd make them feel that they will feel better as a human being, which I feel, fair exchange is no robbery. I make sure that people leave the stage feeling better than they did when they came on stage. I frame it that although people are laughing at them, I make sure that regularly they give them a round of applause. Give them a huge round of applause. And it's good for the person's ego. It makes them feel loved, wanted, needed, appreciated, cared for, cherished and valued. It fills that hole. Therapeutically, when people come to see me, I provide that safe environment. I give them permission to change, an excuse to change, the excuse being that they can go away and they've got the safety blanket of all that self-blame, shame, guilt and regret being removed. But ultimately what I'll do in the consulting room is things like the inner child exercise that I shared with you earlier. It's things like running them through my complete mind therapy treatment session. But you can do that free of charge by going to magicalguru.com, clicking on where it says therapy, and the third or fourth video down is an interactive virtual treatment session that's helped tens of thousands of people to stop smoking, lose weight, gain confidence, overcome fears and phobias, and a whole host of other things, and it will not cost you a penny. And I know what you're thinking. What's the catch? If what he's told us is true, this is it, I'm about to open it up. If what he's told us is true, and by the way, those people who are still watching on Facebook and making comments, you can ask questions in the chat box there in a minute, and I will answer them also over both platforms. If what he said is true, and is that simple, what's the catch? Why is he saying go to his website, there's a free interactive session, and that if you use that in the way it's instructed, that you will not need to spend any money with me? Because I know that a percentage of people will still feel like they need that safety blanket. They'll get 95% of the way there, although they're fully capable of getting 100% themselves, for the reasons I've explained. But some people still want to delude themselves, you might say, but they want to feel as though they don't want to tell the white lie I told you to tell earlier, which is to pretend you've seen a therapist so that psychologically people can't say, why didn't you do it sooner? They want to actually genuinely have seen a therapist so that when they're saying, the reason I didn't do it sooner is because I hadn't saved up the money to go and see the therapist and had not been, they're doing it from a position of truth. Some people don't like telling the white lie, and those people will become my clients, a percentage of them. But I know a larger number of you may get interested and go and get the free books or the free videos, learning about the elements I've not had time to talk about. But there's a large amount of this also that is the placebo effect, and the opposite of that they call the nocebo effect. There's other psychological principles called the Hawthorne effect, which is effectively if you know that somebody's watching you, you act differently as a human being than if you think nobody knows what's going on. And that's why weight loss programs that are supervised and where you're held accountable tend to be more successful than ones that you just do off your own bat. So the replay will be on Facebook. If you're on Facebook and you want to ask a question, tap it in there. If you're on, I'm having a mental block and I'm bloody on it now. Clubhouse, do that thing where you switch your mic on or put your hand up or whatever, and I'll allow you to speak. Here we go. Invite to speak, Joshua. Here we go. Joshua should now be able to speak.
Hello, Jonathan.
Hi, Joshua. How are you doing?
I'm doing fantastic. I enjoyed every minute of your presentation today.
Thank you. I appreciate that. If you did miss any, it'll be on facebook.com/Alex the Hypnotist. Well, the moment we finish, because it's Facebook Live, so when I click stop, it'll be there. But yeah, thank you very much for joining us. It's appreciated. Any questions, my friend?
Yes, Jonathan. Well, I took your challenge at the beginning seriously. You challenged the audience very sincerely to challenge you.
Yeah, cool.
If anything you said wasn't true, and
yep.
I agree with you. I believe that we play a part, and it allows people to do those things which the part they're playing they can't do. So I have nothing to challenge you on.
Oh, okay.
Perhaps that there is something I saw you do that I didn't hear you say, which I find is a key component to change work, to actually helping people overcome life challenges.
Yeah.
And where I heard it last was when you talked us through an age regression practice of holding a pillow.
Yeah, I don't refer to. I wouldn't say that's age regression. That's a different thing. Age regression is where you psychologically think, and feel that particular age. This is more of a visualization where you pretend that you've got a mini you on your lap, which the pillow represents and that you hold.
I do believe you're correct, and I apologize for using the wrong vocabulary there, but I do mean to point out that moment in time when you were speaking about that process,
mm-hmm.
I felt you doing it. I heard in your voice you genuinely giving yourself love, care, and acceptance. I felt I couldn't see your body, but my body responded to it here across the world because I felt a genuineness that you were there doing it.
You're very correct, Joshua.
Throughout your entire presentation, I picked up on that a few times, and to me that was one of the most powerful things, and it was the only thing you didn't allude to directly.
Right, well, basically, because I've just ran out of time, I'll be honest, and it slipped my memory. The truth is, yeah, you're quite right. If you can, as the therapist or the speaker or the salesperson or whatever is relevant to the context where you're using hypnotic or persuasion techniques, if you can modulate your voice tones and also your body language to a degree, which I'm sure if people go to facebook.com/Alex the Hypnotist and watch the video replay, they'll see exactly what you've just highlighted, and thank you for highlighting it, Joshua. That I do tend to, I am sat here and although I haven't physically got a pillow, I mime holding the pillow and I close my eyes and I visualise in my head, seeing myself as a young sort of 6-year-old getting bullied at school and saying, I love you, I'm sorry, you know, things are different now, and I'm doing what I did earlier. And yeah, I do actually do it because it kind of transmits through my voice tone and body language, as you correctly picked up on and pulled me up on for not mentioning, thank you for that, to the person as a verbal suggestion by way of the voice tones and a non-verbal suggestion by way of the body language to them that there is some kind of worthwhile power and energy in this. Yeah.
Can I ask, Jonathan, if you thought consciously that you were going to bring that feeling with your voice and body, or do you just do it?
These days, the vast majority of the time, end up doing it when I don't even intend to. Could it's become like an automatic reflex action to for example, when I'm doing presentations for corporate companies, for sales companies, I will, during the course of the presentation, by the end of it, one side of the stage is where I always end up standing when I'm talking about negative stuff. One side of the stage is where I am when I'm talking about improvements along the way. And centre stage is where I am talking about they have made those positive changes and now it all assimilates together. And in NLP, they call that spatial anchoring. So it's kind of amplifying the body language thing. And that takes a bit more conscious effort. But in terms of what you correctly pointed out, yeah, it's kind of just, it's second nature now. There was a time when I had to, years ago, consciously think, okay, if I'm going to talk to somebody and tell them that in a few months' time they're going to start relaxing more and more, that my voice tone has to start going down and down and down. But now you know, or if I'm going to wake them up, I'll go, I'm going to count from 1 to 3. On the count of 3, you'll instantly be wide awake. You'll feel fantastic, energized inside, and bring the voice tones up. There was a time I had to consciously think about doing it, but like any skill, you get what they call muscle memory after time, and you just, when you are doing a certain thing, you end up doing it a certain way because you found that in the past it's worked best that way. It'd be my honest answer to that one, Joshua.
Thank you, Jonathan. I don't have anything more. If you would like to answer any other questions.
Just seeing here, I'm a big fan of QA. This is typed on Facebook. Saved my life and health many times. That's a colleague therapist of mine I know called Keith Anthony Taylor. Yeah, I mean, it's been at death's door, and just literally it can be the difference between people giving up or not giving up. Sometimes things that are impossible, well, no, they're not impossible. Just look at the word, reframe it. I am is at the beginning. It's saying I'm possible. They say some things are incurable, and yet we hear stories of people who live 20, 30 years longer than conventional medical science say was possible. And people that apparently have had miraculous cures. Not many, but we do hear about it sometimes that get validated by conventional medical science. Well, that just shows that incurable is just a word that isn't always right. Sometimes it can be, it's two words that have been pushed together, and the clue is that the cure, the curable bit, is inside them. Conventional medicine treats from the neck downwards. I'm not saying don't use conventional medicine, you know. If I break my leg, I'm sure as hell going to a hospital. You get my point? But there are things that conventional medicine, any good, honest, genuine doctor will tell you the best thing you can do, as long as you're not at death's door or got any life-threatening stuff, is stay away from doctors as much as you can, because pharmaceutical companies create customers, not cures. They're about making money, selling drugs. And quite often the best painkillers in the world, with the exception, I'm just using pain as an example, but the best painkiller in the world, arguably from experiences I've had and people that I know, is cannabis and cannabis oils and extracts. And in that regard, anyone who sees or hears this, there's a website, pandamedic.com, and that's panda as in the animal, and then the word medic, all as one word, pandamedic.com, that my friends Anne and Phil Barrett run, that supply really good quality CBD oils and other related products that can save you, you know, polluting your body with chemicals of a pharmaceutical manufactured nature that can have side effects galore. Anyway, I'm not here to talk about that, but I do recommend, for pain control, I recommend CBD, but I also recommend mind power. People who dwell on their pain and focus on the pain, what resists persists. The late and great Dave Allman, a hypnotherapist, used to treat people coming into burns units, emergency hospital. And as they came in, often burnt head to toe, he'd say to them, I know at the moment you're feeling a lot of discomfort. That's an understatement. They're thinking, no, I'm feeling pain, pal, not discomfort. But he's trying to immediately distract their mind, confuse, disorientate them, and take their mind off thinking about pain. He goes, I know you're feeling some discomfort at this time, but just tell me, what's your name? You get the name out of them and they go, okay, David, what's the thing you most enjoy doing on this planet that you'll most enjoy doing when you can, the moment you're out of hospital and fine and fantastic again? And the person might say, playing tennis. And he'd immediately come back and go, close your eyes, and just so long as you keep your eyes tightly closed at all times and keep thinking about all those times you played tennis in the past that you enjoyed most, the times when you won when you thought you might not have won, the times when you played better than you thought was possible, just so long as you keep replaying those in your mind, almost as if you can taste, smell, see, feel and hear everything as 100% total reality, you'll notice that discomfort starts to fade away. And the thing is, as long as that person does think about genuine memories that have got physiology connected to them, and conventional psychology calls it state-dependent memory and learned behaviour, then by virtue of thinking of those things that genuinely happen to them, they are more likely to relax and release the body's natural feel-good chemicals, serotonin, dopamine, which is one of the body's natural painkillers and is much better than any drug the hospital can give you, but isn't always produced on demand, sadly. But these are ways of triggering off those things. But ideally both. I mean, you know, people with long-term chronic pain, use your mind power, but then to deal with the other bit that, you know, you might have got it from a level 10 pain threshold, and with mind power techniques taught and using the complete mind therapy session on magicalguru.com, you might get it down to a 3. But you might want it down to lower than a 3. So then go and get some CBD jelly tablets or oils, or there's creams, there's all manner of products. I'm not getting paid for this, but go and look at pandamedic.com. I'm not on commission. I just know how they've helped my friends who run that site. My friend Phil Barrett recently got diagnosed with I'm having a mental block, Parkinson's. Is that right? Yeah, Parkinson's. That's right. The tremors and stuff have massively reduced, and I've known Phil long enough to know that he doesn't say things. He's the last person on this planet who would tell you something like that worked. In fact, he's the first person who would mock it, and there were times when he definitely in the past would have mocked such things. But now, having had personal first-hand experience himself, he's now an advocate and a walking advert for them. And those around us that knew him when he would have mocked such things have, in the past on Facebook, pointed out, haha, it's quite amusing, but in a nice, positive way, to actually, you know, see him take a different stance because he's experienced it firsthand. And that's why I said at the beginning, don't believe a single word I've said tonight. Don't believe it is as simple as what I've said. Go and put it to the test for yourself. Go and try the virtual treatment session. But don't just try it. Do it as it says. If you do it as it says, then it will work for you. If you're there, Anne.
Yeah, I'm here. I'm here. Yeah.
Pop on a minute, just for the purpose. I know there's only a couple on here, but I've got quite a number of people watching who can hear this live on Facebook Live, and who will also get the replay at the end.
Yeah.
Did I get the website right? Pandamedic.com.
Yeah, that's right. But if anybody wants to just click on my profile, they can see on my profile that not only am I an entertainment agent, I also have a bit of a side hustle with the CBD products and sugar shits and some other great natural products. But and thanks for the shout out, Alex. I do appreciate that. Okay. But I've been listening with. I'm absolutely amazed at this tonight because I've been listening now for 2 hours and it's been fantastic. It's been really great, and I hope it's going to be something that's a regular thing. Couple of things I'd like to ask you.
Yeah.
Do you have a podcast?
But I do have a podcast on Anchor.fm.
Yeah.
Which is the website for it is HypnosisWeek.com.
Right. Okay.
And so far I've interviewed 88 of the biggest, most successful names in personal development, stage hypnosis, hypnotherapy, psychic arena from around the world, body language experts and whatnot. And the reason it's only 88 so far is A, I will only have the best of the best on, and B, of the best of the best, not all of them will agree to come on when I tell them what my conditions are, which are that I will not tell them in advance what I'm going to ask. And they must agree to answer anything I ask them. Otherwise, I will pull them to pieces. And that be prepared for me to tell outright the fact that I believe they're talking bullshit. For example, I've had a gentleman on who teaches a therapeutic technique I won't mention by name, because that way it's not identifying who it was. People can find out for themselves. But he said how it worked to the listeners, and I said, that's bullshit, isn't it? And we had an on-air discussion where ultimately he had to admit that the way I explained it genuinely worked, which is the stuff we've covered today, but a bit more precisely, accurately pointed in one particular area. He ended up having to admit that, well, yeah, that is how it works. I said, so basically you've been brainwashed into believing the nonsense by the person who charged you thousands of pounds to get a piece of paper to tell you you now knew this technique, and you've been holding on to that belief because you invested a load of money, and that's why it was so painful for you to let go of those beliefs. It's called cognitive dissonance, because by letting go of it, although it lets you move forward and have more freedom to explore things, you've first got to accept that, which we all do in life. I'm still doing it. We all make screw-ups, but at some point, maybe the wool was pulled over your eyes and you paid over the odds for snake oil type thing.
As well as I'm concerned, as you know, I'm sort of like on the business side of things. Do you have any courses that you run for, say, well, just for example, if I'm talking to somebody on the phone, and obviously my position is selling artists, are there any kind of like magic words, influence and persuasion, that sort of thing? Do you do anything like that?
I do, and companies that want to pay me to go in, I will do it. I've done it, and I still do it. But the truthful answer is, and this sounds like this is anti-selling. I have for sort of the past 20 years come to the conclusion that if I can give people stuff for free, and the information I give them for free works for them and has an immense value, that they're more likely then to come to one of my live events or book one-to-one coaching. So in the context of business, aside from the fact that you should be running for the entertainment arena courses of that nature because you've done it for so many years and you've got the bloody experience, and people in the industry who are starting out to pay you for that knowledge and advice. But that aside for a minute, there's only really two books you need to look at. One is Persuasion by Robert Cialdini, which is on Amazon, and you can get it new for about £8-9. And the other one is called The Ellipsis Manual, which is ELLIPSIS, The Ellipsis Manual by Chase Hughes, that it basically tells you how to psychologically manipulate people into thinking what you want them to think, giving them various options, but ultimately they end up choosing the one you wanted them to choose, which in sales...
Persuasion, who was that written by?
Robert Cialdini, which Robert is spelt the way you'd expect it to be.
Yeah.
And his second name is C for Charlie, IALDINI.
All right, okay, got that.
And literally, it's when corporate companies pay me to go in and do sales training, there is nothing that I teach them, with the exception of some of the stuff we spoke about today, that I put into a sales context. There's nothing I teach them that isn't either in Robert's book or Chase's book. It's just like I said earlier, some people feel the need to have a human being stand there and tell them it or demonstrate it. But the truth is, you're more than capable of just reading those two books and putting it to use. And the irony of it is, a lot of the techniques, as you're reading them, and you'll go, I've been doing that for years, because you have.
So it just confirms really that what you're doing is that you're doing it right, and just keep on doing it that way.
Quite often, there might be the odd thing that you decide to tweak, but often it makes you aware of things you're doing that you may not consciously have been aware of, because you do it as second nature. And by becoming consciously aware that you're doing it, you can then do it a bit more laser guided, missile fired, rather than just doing it without thinking.
Yeah, that sounds good. I'll have a look at both of those books. Thanks for that, Alex.
That's all right. I mean, they're the Bible. Everyone I know and coach who go into companies teaching any form of persuasion, the two books that they may not tell the people that are going into the companies that's where they're getting the info from, but it's those two books mainly. And then in the body language arena, it's a book called It's Not What You Say That Matters by the guy who was the resident body language expert on the Trisha Show, Robert Phipps, who has released a video DVD set or video download teaching set, which is the best body language training out there. That it's that good that I bought the rights to it, and you can find that in the shop on magicalguru.com.
Have a look at that as well.
Well, you won't. In your case, Anne, I'll tomorrow when I'm back in office mode, I'll send you a discount code for the shop so you can download Robert's videos at no charge.
Oh, brilliant! Thanks. Thank you very much.
Quite all right.
And are you going to be running this room on a regular basis?
I will run a room. But what I will do is what we discussed about the other night in your entertainment room. I will set up a group so it makes it easier for the scheduling and whatnot. I will do one. It will only be, in realism, a 60 minutes maximum, and I will probably sort of only run it once a fortnight, so twice a month.
Yeah.
As a kind of Q&A. Have you got a habit, fear, addiction, phobia, or a question on how to persuade somebody in this environment, and so that I can answer specific case studies, so to speak?
Yeah. And it could build up from there, couldn't it?
There it is. Tonight we've had more people watching on Facebook than on Clubhouse, but the number of people have been contacting me saying, I'm not on Clubhouse yet, I'm on an Android phone, and I've had to let them know you can get it on Android now.
Yeah, you can. Well, if you could let your viewers who are watching, I've got 9.
So people watching, Anne Barrett, who you will be able to see anyway on my Facebook wall.
All right, okay. Yeah, I just popped into the Facebook before I saw that. But I've got 9 invites going. So if anybody wants to have an invite, I've got 9 going. I think Phil's got a few actually. I think he's got about half a dozen.
Cool,
so
thank you. And somehow my wife, who only joined after me, has already been given invites, but I had, up until doing this, I hadn't been given any invites. I don't know, I may...
I don't know what the algorithm is on it, but it works in mysterious ways. But anyway, if anybody does want one, I'm here. Just DM me on my Instagram or directly on my Clubhouse link, and then I just need your number and your name, and then I can put you in the phone and then invite you, and then join in. It's quite I don't know, when I first came on Clubhouse I couldn't get off it, but now I choose my rooms, and the rooms that I go into are the ones that I enjoy, and that's it.
Well, I shall join you on Tuesday, hopefully.
Tuesday 8 o'clock, and it was called UK Live Talent and Management, but because we've been getting people from all over the world, from the States, Ireland, all over the show, they've been joining in, so we've called it Live Talent. We've dropped the UK. We're now global.
Tremendous. And it's like having a free show in your living room. People who are watching and listening.
Absolutely, yeah. We've got singers, and if any of your friends or yourself would like to join in doing something, it's a performing arts club room. So anybody who's got something to do or say or sing or whatever, they're very welcome to get up on stage and do that.
Or just be a voyeur and listening, or you're having a glass of wine or whatever, and it's like having a cabaret show with different singers in your living room.
Yeah. that's it. So, I've really enjoyed tonight. It's been brilliant.
Thank you for helping me get on to Clubhouse, Anne. Yeah, it's much appreciated. Thank you to those that have popped in and out. Ironically, a couple of people who are in earlier are now on Facebook because they've now made comments on there. But anyway, whether you've seen it, heard it, or both, thank you very much indeed for your time. If you heard it, seen it, whichever, in a minute when I say good night, obviously I will stop the Facebook live video, which means about a minute or two later it will be there as a replay if you missed any bits, or if you would like to share it so that your friends, family or colleagues can benefit from what we discussed in the past 2 hours. So with that in mind, keep an eye out. I will announce on all my social media channels when I've decided a definite day and time. But it won't be this coming week. It will be at least the week after before I announce a definite weekly one. So for now, thank you all for joining me. Thank you for your help, Anne, again. And yeah.
Thank you.
Good night, everybody. Bye for now.
Good night.